And the reports out of Kiev are now saying that the lights are out. As you can see right here, strikes from Russia have put them largely in the dark, and this is in response to Zelensky's comments. Zelensky's comment was earlier this week. He said they were going to leave Moscow in the dark. So in turn, Moscow has turned around and left them in the dark. Now, as another winter is coming, the attacks are hitting the power plants and the energy grid, and Russia did this about a year ago, and they were pounding them, and then they just stopped for pretty much no reason. But now, going into winter, they're facing a truly uphill battle, and they're talking about emergency schedules being rolled out in Kiev, Poltava, Kharkov, Sumy, all these areas. They don't know who's going to have power and for how long. Russia could keep this up. You can see on the right, these are all the areas from which they fired missiles from. They hit them from every direction that they could, north, east, and south, pummeling everything that they targeted. I don't think that they had a single missile shot down. If they did, I mean, it wasn't many. It looks like all reached their targets, and they're just pounding them. Russia has claimed over 3,000 square miles of Ukraine in this year alone. One of the biggest problems for Ukraine seems to be Zelensky's mouth, and Zelensky, period. So this is a big escalation here. Again, heading into winter, and with the lights out, everyone's going to have to prepare large scale. Russia doesn't seem to be stopping this time. And, you know, since Trump can't get the Nobel Peace Prize now, it seems like him trying for these peace situations may be over. We'll see. We'll see what comes of it, but really, it looks like he tried here, and it's not up to him anyway in this position. Zelensky and the leadership in Ukraine have got to make a call to end this through and through. Because to me, if not, Russia's going to end up taking over most of the country, and a tactical nuke is probably going to fly here at some point. I could see Zelensky and them, before they get ran out of there, dropping a tactical nuke on Moscow, or attempting to, and in turn, getting themselves nuked. Tactically, I don't see the old conventional weapons ever being used again with the massive radiation plumes, because we've just got too much tactical stuff these days. They can get the job done. I would expect to see that from here, and it's like the ball's in their court to either make peace or get hit again. If they dare strike Russia again from here, they're going to get pounded out hard, and I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from something like that going into winter. So, huge strike here. Join me for the live streams where I'm talking about this in greater detail. The repercussions to all this could lead to World War III. Going live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor as due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Noah's in the gospel abroad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. Lord's will be edifying. It says, lights out. Ukraine's Kyiv, 9 other regions are plunged to darkness as Russia air war escalate. All right, as we know that this war between the Ukraine and Russia has been taking place off and on since 2014, but it really escalated back in 2022 when NATO forces pretty much gave the Ukraine the training and the go-ahead and need to set up biolabs in Ukraine, which harbors the Russian border, which Ukraine is basically native to Russia, okay? And, you know, they're saying in the news on how Ukraine is defeating Russia, but that's not true, man. Okay, the Ukraine was losing horribly to the point they had to recruit, and they was grabbing up people just to get them to fight the war, because it was to the point that they were dying left and right, because the Russian forces is a force to be reckoned with, man. All right, but neither here nor there. The fact about it is these blackouts, okay, which I want to harbor on, which is coming to America, because we know that America is getting ready to be locked into a war with Iran and Russia and China. Okay, as Trump is talking about striking China possibly in fucking But he didn't really make many mention about Iran because allegedly he was trying to do a ceasefire. But we know they're not getting ready to do a ceasefire or anything, man, all right? Because that is not in BB's genetic makeup, to say the least, to render a ceasefire to Iran, because they want to make an ethnic cleansing to the land. But I did want to harbor on this whole darkness thing, okay? Because it mentioned, even though this is going into the war, but the fact that 9 regions are plunged into darkness, that's an act of war. And he was mentioning the wintertime. So what's happening in Ukraine will happen here in America eventually, because, you know, they've been talking about possible grid outages and so forth, man. Grid shut down, even though that's the grid shut down. Hold on. The coming blackout, the great power outage of 2025, it starts sooner than you think. And, you know, a lot of these videos kind of be generic, but this is from the Goshen Prepping, which, see what he says, because blackouts, hold on 1 second, because we know blackouts are part of the script, is part of prophecy, man, and we understand that that's a particular mood that they can use in order to reset everything, because, you know, we're going into a global digital system, you know. So let's see what this guy says, and we'll get a couple of precepts. But I just mentioned the Ukraine because, you know, it's funny how they're coming into the colder months, and all of a sudden, you know, the power grids are being shut down.
Short but very important video today. Watch through this, because we see some things unfolding right now that's going to affect every single one of us, and this summer very well may be catastrophic. Let me jump into a couple articles and show you. I'm sure you saw this in the news. What we know about Monday's sweeping power outage in Spain and Portugal. France too, by the way. The sweeping power outage that hit Spain and Portugal this week has raised questions about the electricity grid in a region not normally known for blackouts. And this outage is one of the worst ever in Europe. Affected.
Right, and I remember that in Portugal and Spain. That happened like roughly 5 months ago, because a lesson was done on it actually. But yeah, we living in volatile times, man, and war, you know. Grid is failing. The U.S. power grid is about to crash.
The U.S. power grid is basically a tired old hamster running on a wheel trying to keep up with an electric revolution. Demand is soaring thanks to AI data centers, electric cars, AC units, and all the young kids plugging in their electronics. Meanwhile, utilities are scrambling to build new gas plants like it's 1995. And now, President Trump has a hard-on for being anti-wind turbines. Is that really the future we want? So what's the fix? More grid infrastructure upgrades, faster renewable interconnections, and more nuclear power. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, regardless of it, let's go into the scriptures. Exodus 10:21, and it says here, "And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thy hand towards heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt." Okay, now this happened in ancient Egypt, and when you go into 2nd Esdras 15, it say the Lord will smite Egypt with plagues as before. So we expect these particular ordeals to remanifest themselves, because, you know, they're building up data centers, and they're talking about power or energy sources are going up now, because for the simple fact they're building these AI data centers. So therefore, that's causing our energy bills to skyrocket, which I don't believe that. Okay, everything is being done by design, and we know that Esau has a nefarious agenda at hand, to say the least. But it says, over Egypt, even a darkness which may be felt. Because you ever been in a room that was so dark to the point you can feel the thickness and the density of the darkness? But even in this case, it's going into spirits, because apparitions. Okay, America is a land of death, bloodshed, murder. So there's a lot of a lot of tension and a lot of spiritual presence that's here in America. And this is why you have ley lines, and this is why you have haunted houses, you have haunted attractions. Okay, and the fact that these people, they got demons on them, they on drugs, you know, whether it be recreational or municipal purposes, or whether they prescribe, these people have spirits on them, man. Okay, you got a lot of witches here in America that conjure up a particular revenues of the dead to commune with the living. So it's going to be a real powder keg here of evil. And it says, and Moses stretched forth his hand towards heaven, And there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days, that they saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwelling places, all right? And in this case, you know, we always teach that the elect will have the light and obtain the mercy from the Heavenly Father, because that's biblical. Okay, but once this whole society is plunged to darkness, everything shuts down, and they can very well use that to reset everything, because, you know, they're talking about economic shutdown. As Trump threatened to put more tariffs on China, China retaliates. So the more tariffs you put on China, the worse it's going to be for your economy, because China owns this place, lock, stock, and barrel. Okay, along with the small hats. Everything you buy is important from China, Taiwan, Vietnam, or whatever, or those Asian countries. Okay, like I'm looking at this baseball cap I got, the snapback, and the tags say, well, this is actually made in, wow, it's made in Haiti. Huh, that's funny. But usually products are made in China, but like the gym shoes you wear, everything is made in China. You know? And Trump is flirting with terrorists again. He's getting ready to plunge the society into utter chaos, man. That cruel Lord. You see? This is the Wisdom of Solomon 17. And I'm going to start at verses 12. It says, for fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reason offereth. Succor goes into help. It says, an expectation from within being less counted the ignorance more than the cause which bringeth the torment. Meaning, it says, and the expectation from within being less counted the ignorance more than the cause of which bringeth the torment. So basically, you know, the spirits was playing off their naivety, man, or off their psyche, so to speak. You know, and it says, but they sleeping the same that night, which was indeed intolerable, and which came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable hell, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions, and partly fainted. Their heart fell in them, for a sudden fear and not looked for came upon them. And all this was happening during that 3 days of darkness that we just read about in Exodus, the 10th chapter. All right, so as I was mentioning in the Ukraine, hey, that's just an act of war, but that's going to happen over here in the West, man, because that was 9 regions over there. Okay, and we know that America is divided into like 50 provinces, man, which is considered states, which is one big city for real. All right, they're just divided by state lines, but America is one big gigantic city, as it tells us in Revelation. And it says here, so then whosoever there fell down was straitly kept, shut up in a prison without iron bars, for whether he were a husbandman or a shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken and endured the necessity which could not be avoided, for they were all bound with the chain of darkness. Yeah, you know, because they was plagued in the mind as well, as those spirits was revealing themselves. It says, whether it was a whistling wind or a melodious noise of birds among the spreading branches, or pleasant of falling water running violently, or a terrible sound of stones casting down, or a running that could not be seen of skipping beasts, or a roaring voice of the most savage wild beasts, or a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains. These things made them swoon to fear, because they couldn't see it, they could just hear it. Okay, the concept of a haunted house. And it reads, it says, for the whole world shined with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor, and that world goes into Israel. Okay, it says, over them only was spread a heavy night, an image of that darkness which should afterwards receive them, but yet were they unto themselves more grievous than the darkness. So the darkness was bad, but it was all a play on the mind, man. Okay, so that's the point. There's going to be a lot of wickedness transpiring once the grid goes down, because we know that, you know, like I said, there's a lot of sorcery here in America, man. Okay, matter of fact, is that Revelation 16 or 15? Darkness, maybe Revelation 15. Darkness, kingdom. Nah, quoted that wrong. I think it's Revelation. I thought it was 15 or 16, but I may got it wrong. Revelation 16 and 10. Yeah, that's what I thought. This is the book of Revelation 16 and 10. It says, and the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. And darkness goes into the evil, the judgments as well. All right, but let's look this word up and see what the blue letter tells us. And it goes into scuto.
Strong's G 4656, scatao.
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 Now, I speculate that word means like, you know, the judgments and everything that's going to transpire. But of course, the physical darkness is not off the ground, because the scriptures say the day of the Lord is full of darkness and not light, meaning the evil thereof as well. It says to darken and cover with darkness, metaphor to darken or blind the mind. So it goes into the people being in a state of delirium, also to darken and cover with darkness. Full of darkness, be full of darkness. Yeah, and that's straightforward. It says to cover with darkness, to darken. And we know dark means just dark shit. All right, it's just straightforward. To grow dark, darker, make darker, become darker, become angry, unhappy, and gloomy. And this is going to be a gloomy ass kingdom, you know, to say the least. But with that, I'm going to end it giving all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Shai. Our Lord's will, you are edified. Until the next lesson. Shalom.